In November of 1971, commercial air travel was a far more casual experience than it is today. Passengers could board without passing through security checkpoints, and the atmosphere inside the cabin was often as relaxed as a private lounge. That environment makes the man who called himself Dan Cooper so distinct. He didn't look like a threat. He looked like a professional, boarding a flight from Portland to Seattle in a dark business suit, a clip-on tie, and loafers. His method was as understated as his appearance. He simply caught a flight attendant's attention and passed her a note. When she didn't read it immediately, he leaned in and quietly told her that he had a bomb in his briefcase. While he waited for the FBI to gather $200,000 and 4 parachutes on the ground, Cooper remained perfectly calm. He ordered a bourbon and soda, paid his bill, and even tipped the flight attendant while maintaining his threat. When the plane landed in Seattle, he executed his trade with total precision. He released all 36 passengers unharmed the moment the money and parachutes were delivered to the aircraft. Once the plane was back in the air, he took over the navigation. He ordered the flight crew to head for Mexico City at a low altitude, under 10,000 feet, while keeping the wing flaps lowered to ensure the plane stayed at a slow, manageable airspeed. The crew realized they weren't dealing with a panicked amateur. They were being directed by someone with a methodical, almost mechanical level of control over every detail of the hijacking. As the Boeing 727 crossed the Cascade foothills, it flew into a freezing winter storm. Outside, darkness was total, and rain turned to ice. The 727 was equipped with a unique rear air stair that could be deployed while the aircraft was in flight. Sometime after 8 p.m., the crew in the cockpit saw a warning light indicating that Cooper had opened those stairs into the rushing wind. He was preparing to jump into a sub-zero storm, wearing nothing but his suit and loafers. He had no specialized gear, no helmet, and no way to see the terrain below him. He stepped off the stairs and into the slipstream of the jet engines, vanishing instantly into the night. Cooper's calculated planning ended the moment he traded a pressurized cabin for an uncontrollable battle against the mountain weather. The resulting FBI investigation, codenamed Norjack, became one of the most exhaustive searches in the Bureau's history. Agents worked to reconstruct the flight path to find where Cooper might have landed. The search zone was a logistical nightmare. It covered hundreds of square miles of dense forest and steep, jagged mountains, all buried under heavy winter snow and sub-zero temperatures. Thousands of man-hours were spent combing the wilderness, but the physical results were non-existent. There was no body, no parachute, and no sign of the briefcase. With no physical trail on the ground, the FBI's only lead was a master list of the serial numbers from the ransom money. Every one of the 10,000 bills had been recorded before they were handed over. Over the years, forensic technology reached a point where agents could pull trace DNA from the tie Cooper left on the plane, but even that failed to produce a match among the hundreds of potential suspects. The sheer hostility of the Washington wilderness effectively erased the evidence, turning a calculated crime into a permanent mystery. The case remained silent until 1980, when an 8-year-old boy was digging in the sand along the Columbia River. He uncovered 3 bundles of cash, heavily decayed and barely held together. Checking the serial numbers on those tattered bills, agents found a perfect match. Nearly $6,000 had sat in the riverbank for a decade. This find only made the investigation more difficult. The location of the money was miles away from any predicted landing zone, with no clear explanation for how it ended up buried in the sand. By 2016, with no further leads and exhausted resources, the FBI officially suspended the active investigation, leaving the files to gather dust as a cold case. Dan Cooper remained the only person to ever successfully hijack a commercial plane in the U.S. and vanish without a trace. The investigation remained at a standstill until 2022, when a retired pilot followed a lead to a North Carolina barn for his YouTube channel. He located a piece of physical equipment matching the specific gear Cooper used during the jump, providing the first concrete lead in over 50 years and reopening a mystery the wilderness seemingly claimed forever. We leave the freezing, rainy skies of the Pacific Northwest in 1971 and find ourselves in the warm, quiet farmland of modern-day North Carolina. The shift in geography brings a new angle to the investigation. because Dan Cooper was actually not the only person to execute a mid-air hijacking out the back of a commercial airliner. Richard Floyd McCoy Jr. had the exact skill set required to pull off such a jump. He was a former Green Beret and a decorated Vietnam veteran, highly trained in airborne operations. In April 1972, just 5 months after the Cooper incident, McCoy boarded a United Airlines flight, demanded $500,000, and jumped from the rear stairs of the aircraft in mid-flight. But McCoy's operation unraveled almost immediately. He was captured within days and sentenced to 45 years in prison. He broke out of that facility in 1974, only to be tracked down and killed in a shootout with FBI agents a few months later. A man with an elite military jumping background who successfully completed an identical crime made for a compelling suspect. For decades, investigators debated whether McCoy's United Airlines jump was his first attempt or a second. The debate remained entirely theoretical until 2022, when retired commercial pilot Dan Grider traveled to Cove City, North Carolina, to investigate a property owned by the McCoy family. While searching the property, Grider located a piece of physical evidence, a modified military parachute rig that belonged to McCoy. This diagram illustrates McCoy's harness and canopy, highlighting structural modifications differing from standard-issue military gear. These perfectly match documented rigging techniques used by Earl Cossey, the parachute rigger who supplied the original equipment handed to Dan Cooper in Seattle. A specific physical link between McCoy's personal property and the exact gear used in the 1971 hijacking elevates McCoy from a theoretical copycat to a suspect tied directly to material evidence. That evidence was only preserved because of a long-held family secret. McCoy's children, Shantae and Rick, suspected for years that their father was the man behind the Cooper hijacking. They maintained a strict silence about their suspicions out of fear of role in planning both hijackings, and speaking out could lead to her prosecution. When Karen passed away in 2020, that barrier was removed. Her children finally felt safe enough to speak openly with Grider. In September 2023, Grider and Rick McCoy met with federal agents, formally handing over the modified parachute rig and an old skydiving logbook as evidence. The FBI's response was immediate. Agents searched the North Carolina property directly and officially requested DNA samples from both Shantae and Rick. There are severe, though unconfirmed, reports suggesting the Bureau has considered exhuming Richard McCoy Jr.'s remains to advance the investigation. By breaking a half-century of silence, the family forced the Bureau to reactivate a cold case, turning private lore into an active pursuit of physical proof. It is crucial to draw a firm boundary right here. A family's belief and a surrendered piece of equipment do not equal an official FBI confirmation. In January 2026, the FBI released hundreds of pages of declassified files, a collection researchers now refer to as the Cooper Vortex. These documents do not contain a definitive confession or an undisputable smoking gun. They are comprised of agent interview summaries, tips from the public, and internal suspect profiles. They do reinforce the Bureau's long-standing assessment of the hijacker. The files describe an operator who was methodical, unnervingly calm, and deeply knowledgeable about both aviation systems and military jump protocols. McCoy is heavily scrutinized in these newly available pages, but his name sits alongside a long roster of other unconfirmed individuals the public has debated for decades. Despite the modern physical evidence and the family's confessions, the highest echelons of the FBI legally maintain their stance. They refuse to name McCoy, or anyone else, as D.B. Cooper. Over the last 55 years, countless theories have gained traction, dominated headlines, and eventually faded. The only undisputed physical proof of the entire crime remains the ransom money found washed up on a riverbank in 1980. The recovered bills prove that the hijacker existed, and that gravity worked to bring at least some of the money back to the ground. They offer zero answers about his survival or his true identity. The final answer could be buried in a North Carolina cemetery, scattered deep within the Cascade Wilderness, or sitting quietly in an FBI file that has yet to see the light of day. Copycats have been caught, deathbed confessions have been recorded, and documents have been declassified, yet nobody has proven the case either way. A man in a business suit accomplished the impossible. He stepped out of a moving 727 into a freezing storm, and took his identity into an absolute, enduring silence.